Hi, this is Dr. Pulsifer with another episode in the Confusions of Game Design series. And this will be a two-parter about intermediate goals and intermediate rewards in games. Two things that in some ways seem similar but are very, very different. And first, I'll talk about intermediate goals, and then in the second part, I'll talk about intermediate rewards. The object of most, although not all, games is to win. It's defined by the rules of the game, whether those rules are written in a rule book or they're in the software of a video game. There are usually things you can accomplish along the way that aren't part of the win condition, yet help you reach that condition. Now, I'm not talking about victory points. I'm talking about goals the players select themselves that do not score victory points but help the player score victory points or otherwise win the game. In a sense, victory points can be guides to what would otherwise have been intermediate goals. In other words, the victory points highlight an intermediate goal that is almost necessary to win the game. You can think of the intermediate goals as steps to winning that the player selects according to their strategy. Now, in some games with always correct solutions, often everyone knows the steps and the steps are clear-cut, like a puzzle. Once you know the solution to a puzzle, you know all the steps. In other games, what you might call problem-solving games that are not intended to have and should not have always correct solutions, then part of the expertise is choosing the intermediate goals in each play of the game, which may not be the same from one game to another. It depends on the situation, depends on the opposition, depends on the scenario. In any case, an intermediate goal is a means to an end. That end usually being winning, but it can be something else. When somebody plays a game, they have some goal, whether it's to win or otherwise, and they can choose intermediate goals to try to reach that goal. For example, my sister-in-law, who rarely plays games, when she does play, wants to cause mayhem and chaos. So her intermediate goals will be different from someone who's trying to win the game. And of course, depending on the game, there may be lots of possible intermediate goals, while others are a lot more straightforward. And we could say that a deep game, or a game with deep gameplay, has lots of possible intermediate goals, although not too many, and the good player is one who can pick out what intermediate goals are the ones that will really most help them win the game. Now let's take a simple example of an intermediate goal. If the winning condition is to accumulate a certain amount of art, an art collection, then the intermediate goal is likely to be to make lots of money, because the money can be used to purchase the art. A more subtle intermediate goal would be in a game of maneuver and spatial relationships, which is to say often a war game, not always. Then occupying a particular town or a road or a rail junction can be an intermediate goal. Now, players can choose goals, not intermediate goals, but the ultimate goal that doesn't help them win. It's not the same as the win condition. These are substitutes for winning. So they're not intermediate goals, they're substitutes for winning. Some of them can be pretty odd, like my sister-in-law, or like someone I know who plays to help someone else win. My brother plays to make sure I don't win when we're both in the same game. On the other hand, these goals can be part of the game and reflect progress in the game, but not necessarily be the best way to win. For example, I have a pirate game, prototype. Some players like to play to build up a big fleet. Now, the player with the big fleet often doesn't win the game, but they can still say they have a big fleet. Another intermediate goal is to take the Spanish silver fleet, which is quite rare. Or another one, sorry, not an intermediate goal, an ultimate goal. Another ultimate goal might be to take a ship of the line, which is virtually unheard of. Now I prefer the term intermediate goals for the steps to winning rather than what some call sub-goals. Sub implies a direct connection to the goal above it, the one it's subordinate to, and that's not the case except in puzzles. In Axis and Allies, say, a big intermediate goal is to increase your economic strength, though that isn't tied directly to the game goal of capturing enemy capitals. Instead, it leads to another intermediate goal, building up your military, and perhaps your technology. And those, in turn, can help you capture enemy capitals. The longer the game, the more intermediate goals there are likely to be. The deeper the game, the more intermediate goals there are likely to be. In shorter, shallower games, intermediate goals are less likely. But this is going to vary a lot with the complexity or simplicity or intricacy of the game. And we'll discuss rewards in part 2.